The observation deck of the Kepler station hummed with the low thrum of gravitational stabilizers, a sound Daniel had grown to recognize as the heartbeat of humanity's first deep space research facility. He pressed his palm against the reinforced titanium glass viewport, watching the swirling nebula beyond paint the darkness in shades of crimson and violet. 3 weeks had passed since he'd found the Fox kit, though calling it that felt insufficient for the bioengineered marvel that had somehow escaped from the xenobiology wing. The creature had been a test subject, its DNA spliced with adaptive proteins designed for rapid evolution in low-gravity environments. When Daniel discovered it trapped in the ventilation system, its eyes wide with terror, he'd broken at least 7 station protocols to return it safely. He'd expected a reprimand, maybe even expulsion from the research program. He hadn't expected Orla. She'd appeared in his quarters the following morning, flanked by her 2 sisters, Kenna and Bryn, all 3 bearing the distinctive silver neural interface ports behind their ears that marked them as drift pilots. The elite few who could navigate gravitic flux fields with nothing but thought and reflex. "You saved something precious to us," Orla had said, her accent carrying the clipped precision of someone raised in the orbital colonies. "My family engineered that specimen. The Fox kit carries genetic data worth more than this entire station." Daniel had stammered something about just doing the right thing. Orla had smiled, a sharp, calculating expression that made his pulse quicken for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. "My sisters believe you got lucky," she'd continued. "They think any baseline human stumbling through the maintenance shafts could have done the same, but I saw the scanner logs. You calculated the optimal rescue trajectory accounting for rotational variance and pressure differentials, in your head, in less than 40 seconds. That had been the first test, Daniel realized later, the one he'd passed without knowing he was being evaluated. The second test had come swiftly, a battle duel in the gravity arena. The arena occupied the station's rotating hub, a spherical chamber 50 meters in diameter where gravity could be manipulated in real time. It was designed for training combat pilots, for simulating the disorienting conditions of space warfare where up and down became meaningless concepts. Daniel had never set foot inside it. His expertise lay in quantum mechanics and theoretical physics, not combat. But Kenna and Bryn had insisted, their eyes gleaming with the predatory anticipation of apex predators who'd found unexpected prey. "Standard rules," Kenna had explained, adjusting her neural interface. 3 rounds. Last person maintaining consciousness wins. Gravity shifts every 30 seconds. No lethal force, but everything else is fair game. Daniel had looked to Orla, hopping for some intervention, some acknowledgement that this was insane. But she'd simply folded her arms and leaned against the observation window, her expression unreadable. "You can refuse," she'd said quietly. "Walk away, no one would blame you." But something in her tone suggested that she would, that this mattered in ways he didn't yet understand. So Daniel had entered the arena. The first round had been brutal. Bryn had moved like liquid mercury, her body adapting instantly to each gravitational shift. One moment Daniel was being pulled toward the floor at 2 gs, his bones creaking under the pressure. The next, he was tumbling in 0 gravity while Bryn launched herself off the walls with calculated precision. She'd pinned him within 90 seconds, her forearm across his throat, not quite cutting off air but making breathing a conscious effort. "Yield," she'd commanded. Daniel had tapped out, gasping as gravity normalized. The second round against Kenna had gone differently. Daniel had spent those precious minutes between rounds doing what he did best, calculating, analyzing, predicting. The gravity shifts weren't random. They followed an algorithm based on Fibonacci sequences. If he could anticipate the next shift a split second before it happened, he could position himself advantageously. Kenna had been faster, more experienced, better trained in every measurable way. But when the gravity suddenly inverted at the 30-second mark, Daniel was already moving, using momentum to slam his shoulder into her solar plexus. The impact knocked the air from her lungs, and in the 3 seconds of disorientation that followed, Daniel had wrapped his legs around her torso and locked his arms around her neck in a chokehold he'd learned from old mixed martial arts archives. "Yield," he'd gasped, his own vision spotting from the exertion. Kenna had tapped out. The third round had never happened. Bryn had stepped forward, fury blazing in her eyes, demanding a rematch. But Orla had finally moved, descending from the observation deck with fluid grace. "He's proven enough," she'd said. "He got lucky," Bryn had started. "He adapted." Orla's voice carried absolute authority. "He analyzed a complex system under extreme physical duress and exploited its patterns. That's not luck. That's exactly what we need." Now, standing on the observation deck 3 weeks later, Daniel finally understood what they'd been testing him for. The door behind him hissed open, and he didn't need to turn to know it was Orla. He'd learned to recognize the particular rhythm of her footsteps, the way she moved through space as if gravity itself bent to accommodate her. "The mission parameters just came through," she said, moving to stand beside him. "We depart in 72 hours. Daniel's reflection in the viewport showed his own anxiety. To the Kepler anomaly. The anomaly, a region of space where gravitational physics broke down completely, where ships entered and never emerged, where the laws of nature seemed to fold back on themselves in ways that defied explanation. 3 research vessels had been lost there in the past 2 years. "My family's company has been trying to crack it for decades," Orla continued. "Every simulation suggests it's impossible to navigate. Too many variables, too much chaos. Even our best quantum computers can't model it accurately." "But you think I can?" Orla turned to face him fully, and in the dim light of the observation deck, her expression was softer than he'd ever seen it. "The Foxkit escape wasn't an accident, Daniel. We engineered it, released it into a maze of maintenance shafts that would have killed it within hours if someone didn't intervene. We needed to find someone who could think laterally under pressure, who could see patterns where others saw chaos." Daniel felt something cold settle in his chest. "You used it as bait." "Yes." No apology in her voice, but something else, respect perhaps. "And when you saved it, when we saw how your mind works, we knew you were our only chance. The gravity duel confirmed it. You don't just react, Daniel, you predict. You see the mathematics underlying reality itself. And if I can't navigate the anomaly, if I'm wrong?" Orla's hand found his, her fingers intertwining with his own. The gesture surprised him. She'd been distant since the duel professional. But now, with humanity's future potentially hanging in the balance, the mask had cracked. "Then we die together," she said simply. "All 4 of us. But the data we've recovered from the anomaly's edge suggests something revolutionary, a form of faster-than-light travel that doesn't rely on conventional physics. If we can crack it, if we can understand it, humanity won't be confined to this one corner of the galaxy anymore." Daniel looked down at their joined hands, feeling the weight of responsibility settling across his shoulders like a physical thing. He thought about the Foxkit, its eyes wide with trust as he gently lifted it from the ventilation shaft. He thought about Kenna's fierce determination and Bryn's raw skill. He thought about Orla's calculated gamble on an awkward physicist who'd never expected to be anything more than a researcher. 72 hours, he repeated. 72 hours, Orla confirmed. Beyond the viewport, the nebula continued its slow, eternal dance, beautiful, deadly, and ultimately comprehensible for those willing to look closely enough. Daniel squeezed Orla's hand once, then released it, his mind already beginning to race through the mathematical frameworks they'd need to survive. The nerd had returned the Foxkit. Her sisters had tested him in battle. Now, he would either help unlock humanity's future among the stars, or disappear with them into the gravitational abyss where physics itself broke down. Either way, Daniel thought with a strange sense of calm. It would be one hell of an equation to solve.